The world spun in a haze of vodka and regret, and I woke to the scent of jasmine perfume on a pillow that wasn't mine. My head throbbed, my mouth tasted like ash, and the woman lying next to me sprawled elegantly across silk sheets was the last person I expected to see. Olivia Kane, the lawyer who'd torn my life apart in court 3 months ago, was now inches away, her dark hair fanned out like a halo, her breathing soft and infuriatingly serene. I, Ellie Harper, 28, former small business owner and current emotional wreck, bolted upright, my heart hammering. The room was unfamiliar. A sleek Manhattan apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows that framed a city still asleep. My clothes were scattered across the hardwood floor, mingling with her tailored blazer, a silk blouse, a single high heel tipped over like a fallen soldier. What the hell had happened last night? I pressed my palms to my temples, trying to piece together the blur of neon lights, pulsing music, and the reckless abandon that led me here. All I could remember was the sting of defeat, the way Olivia's sharp green eyes had locked onto mine in that courtroom as she dismantled my case, my dreams, my everything. 3 months ago, I'd stood in a lower Manhattan courtroom, fighting to save my bakery Harper's Hearth from a predatory real estate developer. Olivia, representing the developer, had been relentless, her arguments razor-sharp, her poise unshakable. She'd painted me as a naive dreamer who couldn't keep up with New York's cutthroat market, and the judge had agreed. I lost everything. My business, my savings, my sense of self. I'd hated her for it. Hated the way her confidence seemed to mock my desperation. Yet here I was in her bed, the morning light casting soft shadows across her face, making her look almost human. I slid out of bed, careful not to wake her, and grabbed my phone from the nightstand. No notifications, no texts, just a dead battery and a sinking feeling that I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. My reflection in a nearby mirror showed smudged mascara and a tangle of chestnut hair, proof of a night I couldn't fully recall. I needed to get out, to escape before she woke, and we had to face whatever this was. But as I reached for my shoes, her voice cut through the silence, low and smooth like velvet over steel. "Leaving already, Harper?" Olivia propped herself up on one elbow, her green eyes glinting with amusement. She didn't look hungover, didn't look rattled, just infuriatingly composed, as always. "You're not as quiet as you think." I froze, my sneakers dangling from my hand. What is this? Why am I here?" My voice cracked, betraying the panic clawing at my chest. She sat up fully now, the sheets slipping to reveal a simple black camisole that clung to her frame. "You don't remember?" Her tone was teasing, but there was a flicker of something else, concern maybe. "We ran into each other at the Velvet Room last night. You were, let's say, generously acquainted with the bartender's vodka selection." The Velvet Room, a trendy LES bar I'd stumbled into after another failed job interview, desperate to drown my sorrows. I vaguely recalled the thump of bass, the sting of liquor, and oh God, her face, unexpectedly kind, across a crowded room. "Did we?" I couldn't finish the sentence, my face burning. Olivia's lips curved into a half-smile. "No, Ellie. We didn't. You were a mess, and I wasn't about to let you wander off into the night. I brought you here to crash. That's all." She paused, her gaze softening. "Though you did try to convince me to dance with you. Very persistently. I wanted to crawl under the floorboards." "I need to go," I muttered, turning toward the door. "Ellie, wait." Her voice stopped me again, softer this time. "You don't have to run. Not from me." I turned back, caught off guard by the sincerity in her eyes. This wasn't the Olivia Kane I knew, the cold, calculating lawyer who'd shredded my dreams without blinking. This was someone else, someone who'd seen me at my lowest and hadn't turned away. My chest tightened, a mix of anger and something I couldn't name. "Why do you care?" I snapped. "You ruined my life. You don't get to play hero now." Her expression faltered just for a second, before she stood and crossed the room to me. "I was doing my job," she said quietly. "I didn't know you, Ellie. I didn't know what the bakery meant to you. I'm not the villain you think I am." "Then who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Because the Olivia Kane I met in court didn't give a damn about me." She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her presence, the faint scent of jasmine again. "Maybe I'm figuring that out," she said. "Maybe you're not the only one who's been unraveling." I didn't know what to say. My anger was still there, a live wire sparking in my chest, but so was something else, a pull, a curiosity, a dangerous flicker of connection. I should have walked away. I should have grabbed my things and run. But I stayed rooted to the spot, as the city outside began to wake. The air in Olivia's apartment felt thick with unspoken questions, and I stood there, caught between wanting to scream and wanting to know why she was looking at me like I was more than a case file. She gestured toward a sleek leather couch, her movements graceful even in the early morning light. "Sit," she said, not a command but an invitation. "I'll make coffee. You look like you need it." I sank onto the couch, my mind racing. The apartment was a study in contrasts, modern, minimalist, with sharp lines and cold surfaces, yet softened by touches of warmth. A knitted throw, a stack of well-worn novels, a small potted plant that looked like it was fighting for its life. It didn't match the Olivia I'd built in my head, the one-dimensional enemy who'd crushed me without remorse. I watched her move in the open kitchen, her hand steady as she worked a fancy espresso machine. She was 29, I remembered from her law firm's by, only a year older than me, but she carried herself like someone who'd already conquered the world. The coffee she handed me was strong, bitter, perfect. I took a sip, letting the warmth ground me. "So," I said, breaking the silence, "you're telling me you just took pity on me last night? That's why I'm here." Olivia sat across from me, cradling her own mug. "Not pity," she said. "You were alone, drunk, and talking about how you'd lost everything. I couldn't just leave you there." She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the mug. "And maybe I wanted to talk to you. Outside of a courtroom." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Talk? You didn't want to talk when you were tearing my life apart. You didn't care that Harper's hearth was all I had." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't look away. "I did my job, Ellie. My client wanted your property, and I was hired to make that happen. It wasn't personal. It was to me," I shot back. "That bakery was my grandmother's dream, my dream. It was where I learned to knead dough, where I fell in love with creating something real. You took that away, and now you're acting like we can just, be friends?" She leaned forward, her eyes searching mine. "I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm not your enemy. I've spent my career fighting for clients who pay me to win, not to feel. Last night, when I saw you at that bar, you weren't just a name on a file anymore. You were real, and you were hurting." Her words hit harder than I expected, stirring something I didn't want to acknowledge. I set my coffee down, my hands trembling. "You don't get to decide when you care about me," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. The truth was, I'd seen something in her last night, to a glimpse of vulnerability, a crack in her polished armor. I remembered her hand on my arm, steadying me as I stumbled, her voice soft as she promised to get me somewhere safe. "Why did you bring me here?" I asked, quieter now. "You could have called me a cab, left me at a hotel. Why your place?" Olivia's gaze dropped to her coffee, and for the first time she looked uncertain. "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe I wanted to make sure you were okay. Maybe I wanted to understand you." I didn't know how to respond to that. The anger I'd clung to for months was still there, but it was fraying, tangled up with the memory of her kindness last night, the way she was looking at me now. "You're not who I thought you were," I said finally. She smiled, a small wistful thing. "Neither are you." The rest of the morning passed in a strange, fragile truce. She offered me a spare toothbrush, a clean shirt, a chance to shower while she made breakfast. I stood under the hot water, letting it wash away the remnants of last night's haze, but it couldn't erase the questions swirling in my mind. Why was she being so kind? What did she want? And why couldn't I stop noticing the way her eyes softened when she looked at me? By the time I emerged, dressed in her oversized Columbia Law sweatshirt, she'd set out a spread of toast, eggs, and fruit on the counter. We ate in silence at first, the clink of silverware the only sound. Then she spoke, her voice careful. "What's next for you, Ellie? After the bakery?" The question caught me off guard, and I felt a familiar ache in my chest. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I've been applying for jobs, but nothing feels right. I keep thinking about starting over, maybe opening a new place someday, but..." I trailed off, the weight of my lost dream pressing down. "You could," she said, her tone earnest. "You're resilient. I saw it in court, even when I was on the other side. You fought hard." Her words were a double-edged sword, acknowledging my strength while reminding me of her role in my defeat. I looked at her, searching for the catch, but all I saw was sincerity. "Why are you saying this?" I asked. "Why do you care what I do next?" She set her fork down, her expression unreadable. "Because I see you, Ellie. And I think you're worth rooting for." The rest of that morning felt like walking a tightrope, every word, every glance charged with a tension I couldn't name. Olivia didn't push, didn't pry, but her presence was a constant pull, drawing me in even as I fought to keep my walls up. By the time I left her apartment, promising to return her sweatshirt, I was more confused than ever. I spent the next week replaying our conversation, her words looping in my mind. "I see you, Ellie. And I think you're worth rooting for." New York moved on around me, indifferent to my turmoil. I lived in a cramped Brooklyn walk-up, scraping by on savings and odd jobs while I figured out my next move. The loss of Harper's Hearth still stung, a wound that reopened every time I passed a bakery or smelled fresh bread. But Olivia's face kept creeping into my thoughts, her sharp edges softened by that morning's unexpected kindness. I hated how much I wanted to see her again. Then a week later she texted me. "Coffee? My treat. I owe you after last time." Simple, casual, but it sent my heart racing. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a small cafe in Greenwich Village, a place with mismatched chairs and the kind of cozy chaos that felt like home. She was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window with a latte, her blazer swapped for a soft gray sweater that made her look less like a corporate shark and more like someone I could know. "You came," she said, smiling as I slid into the seat across from her. "Didn't have anything better to do," I lied, my hands fidgeting with the menu. Truth was, I'd spent an hour agonizing over what to wear, settling on jeans and a simple white blouse, hoping I looked effortlessly put together. We talked for hours, the conversation flowing easier than I expected. She told me about growing up in Chicago, the pressure to succeed in a family of overachievers, the way law school had been her escape and her cage. I told her about my grandmother, who'd taught me to bake, about the warmth of the bakery's kitchen, about the dreams I wasn't sure I could rebuild. It was strange sharing pieces of myself with her, but it felt right, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. As the cafe emptied out, she leaned closer, her voice low. "I looked into the developer who bought your property," she said. "There's something off about the deal. I think they might have cut corners, maybe even violated some regulations. I could help you look into it if you want." I stared at her, my pulse quickening. "Why would you do that? You worked for them." "Not anymore," she said, her eyes steady. "I quit the firm last week. I'm done representing people who don't care who they hurt." The revelation hit me like a wave. Olivia, the woman who'd embodied everything I'd hated about the system, was walking away from it. For the first time I saw her not as the enemy, but as someone searching for redemption, just like me. "Okay," I said finally. "Let's look into it." Over the next few weeks we became an unlikely team. Olivia used her legal expertise to dig into the developer's records, while I reached out to former neighbors and tenants who'd been displaced. We met in coffee shops, libraries, even her apartment, poring over documents and piecing together a case. The more time we spent together, the more I saw her layers, the ambition, the guilt, the quiet humor she hid behind her polished exterior. I caught myself watching her, noticing the way her eyes lit up when she found a lead, the way her hand brushed mine when we passed papers back and forth. One night, working late in her apartment, I found myself staring at her across the table, the glow of her laptop casting shadows on her face. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You don't owe me anything." She looked up, her gaze intense. "Maybe I owe myself something," she said. "Maybe I want to be someone who does the right thing, not just the winning thing. And maybe," she hesitated, her voice softening, "maybe I want to be someone you don't hate." My breath caught. The air between us felt electric, charged with all the things we hadn't said. I wanted to reach for her to close the distance, but fear held me back. Instead I nodded, my heart pounding. "I don't hate you," I said. "Not anymore." The investigation consumed us, a shared mission that blurred the lines between allies and something more. Olivia's apartment became our unofficial headquarters, littered with legal pads, coffee cups, and the faint scent of jasmine that clung to her. Every lead we uncovered, shady permits, coerced evictions, felt like a step toward justice, but it also brought us closer, our lives intertwining in ways I hadn't anticipated. One rainy evening, as thunder rumbled over Manhattan, we hit a breakthrough. Evidence that the developer had falsified documents to fast-track the demolition of my bakery. Olivia's eyes gleamed with triumph as she highlighted the key clauses, her excitement contagious. "This could be enough to reopen the case," she said, her voice alive with possibility. "We could get your property back, Ellie, or at least compensation." I should have been thrilled, but instead I felt a pang of fear. If we won, if this fight ended, would our connection end too? I looked at her, rain streaking the windows behind her, and realized I didn't want this to be over. Not the case, not us. "What happens after this?" I asked, my voice unsteady. "When we don't have this to keep us together?" Olivia's smile faded, replaced by something raw, unguarded. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine. "Ellie," she said softly, "this isn't just about the case for me. It hasn't been for a while." My heart stuttered. Her touch was warm, steady, and it sent a rush through me that I couldn't ignore. "What are you saying?" I whispered, afraid to hope. She stood, moving around the table to sit beside me, her eyes never leaving mine. "I'm saying I see you, all of you. Your strength, your heart, the way you keep fighting even when you're scared. I'm saying I'm falling for you, and it terrifies me, but I don't want to stop." The world seemed to pause, the rain outside fading to a distant hum. I'd spent months hating her, blaming her, but now, sitting here, I saw her, really saw her. The woman who'd fought for me, who'd risked her career to right a wrong, who looked at me like I was enough. I leaned in, my lips brushing hers, tentative at first, then deeper, a kiss that felt like a confession, a promise, a beginning. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. We filed a new case against the developer, armed with our evidence and a shared determination. But beyond the legal battle, we were building something else, a fragile, beautiful connection that grew with every late-night talk, every stolen glance, every moment we let ourselves be vulnerable. Olivia was still sharp, still ambitious, but she was also warm, funny, fiercely protective. I learned she loved jazz, hated olives, and had a secret dream of opening a bookstore someday. She learned I could bake a mean apple tart and that I cried at every Pixar movie. But the closer we got, the more the outside world pushed back. My family, conservative and skeptical, didn't understand why I was spending so much time with that lawyer. Friends warned me not to trust her, reminding me of the pain she'd caused. And Olivia faced her own battles, colleagues who saw her defection as betrayal, a legal community that didn't take kindly to her turning on a former client. We were two women navigating a world that wasn't always kind to our love, but we held on, anchoring each other. One night, as we lay in her bed, the city glittering outside, I traced the curve of her jaw and asked, "Do you ever regret this? Helping me, getting involved?" She turned to face me, her eyes soft in the moonlight. "Never," she said. "You're the best risk I've ever taken." The courtroom was colder than I remembered, the same sterile space where I'd lost everything months ago. This time, though, Olivia stood beside me, her hand brushing mine as we faced the judge. Our case was strong: documents, witness testimonies, a paper trail of corruption that even the developer's new lawyers couldn't dismiss. But as the proceedings dragged on, I felt the weight of it all. The fear of losing again, the scrutiny of our relationship, the whispers from onlookers who saw us as an odd Pyra baker and a lawyer, enemies turned lovers. Olivia was a force, her arguments precise, her passion undeniable. She fought not just for me, but for every tenant who'd been pushed out, every dream crushed by greed. Watching her, I felt a swell of pride, love, and something fiercer, hope. When the judge ruled in our favor, granting compensation and halting the developer's project, the courtroom erupted in murmurs. I turned to Olivia, tears in my eyes, and she pulled me into a hug, her arms a safe harbor in the chaos. The victory wasn't just about money or justice. It was about reclaiming a piece of myself. With the settlement, I started planning a new bakery, smaller but mine, a place to rebuild my grandmother's legacy. Olivia was there every step, helping with permits, cheering me on, even taste testing my recipes, though she was hopeless with a rolling pin. Our love grew stronger, weathered by challenges but rooted in trust. We faced judgment from strangers and loved ones alike, but we learned to lean on each other, to carve out a space where we could be us. One morning months later I woke in her apartment, the scent of jasmine familiar now, comforting. She was already awake, watching me with a smile that made my heart ache. "Good morning," she said, leaning in to kiss me soft and slow, a kiss that held all the mornings we'd fought for. "You know," I said, pulling back to look at her, "I never thought I'd wake up like this. With you." She laughed, her eyes crinkling. "I never thought I'd fall for the woman I met in court. But here we are. Here we were, two women who'd started as adversaries, who'd stumbled through pain and redemption to find each other. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours, a testament to the messy, beautiful power of love, forgiveness, and second chances. As the city woke outside, I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together, hand in hand, hearts open. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.